Hello and welcome to this video. My name is Miriam and as you might notice, I love everything about books. In 2021 I challenged myself to read 365 books, but today's video is not really about that. Today's video is about my June TBR, so it sort of is about those 365 books because when I put my TBR together I try to mix thin and thick books. But it does not always work like that because a lot of books are ebooks and I do not really know before I add them to my TBR how many pages they have. But anyway, I'm going to show you all the books I'm going to read in June. I don't know if this is just a national thing, but in June we have something called the Maand van het Spannende Boek, which can be translated as the month of the thriller book. Well, I do not really like to read a lot of thrillers. If I read a thriller, it's usually a Christian book. For this month I actually picked out a few thrillers to read because, well, I tend to read quite a lot of novels and I'm still going to read quite a lot of novels, especially feel-good novels. Like there has to be some balance, right? You read some books that are really scary about murderers and crime and everything, so you also have to read some rainbow fluffy feel-good books. I think that's actually a good deal. So like the other months, first I'm going to show you the books I'm going to read in Dutch and are originally Dutch. Then I move on to the books that are originally English or another language, but usually English, and are translated into Dutch, and I'm going to read the Dutch version. And last I will show you the books I'm going to read in English. It's probably not a surprise, but I'm going to read the 5th book in the Duivendale series. This is actually quite a sad one and I'm not entirely looking forward to it, but on the other hand it will probably read quite easily, and the 6th and 7th book in the series are I think a lot more interesting, so I'll just have to get through this one. The second originally Dutch book actually has an English title. It's called Chess, and I've read this book before a couple of years ago, or actually I think it's more than 10 years ago since I read this book, but I still do know a bit what it's about. I think it's about hacking and chess, and yeah, it's a meaty thriller, so it's not like a really scary thriller, but just something in between. The 3rd Dutch original book I'm going to read is the 3rd book in the Kemper series by Johan Leeflang. I don't think you can call it a thriller word. It's actually about adventure and some mystery going on, so that works also really well in this month. The last Dutch original book I'm going to read is De Ontdekking van Urk, and this is written actually by a Flemish journalist. It was first published in Belgium, I think, but it's about a Dutch village that's really, well, I don't know how to describe this, but I might tell you more about it when I'm reading the book. Then I might be able to explain it a bit more and do a bit of research on what I should say about this. These are the 4 original Dutch books I'm planning to read. Usually I do not stick entirely to my TBR, or I do read my TBR but I add a few books because I do not put 30 books on my TBR. I think I have like about 20 books for this month, so I have some choice there. So maybe I'm going to read some other Dutch original books, but you'll see all about that in my weekly wrap-up video. I'm looking at the list again, and really it's like there's only like 2 options there. It's feel good or thriller. So the next book I'm going to read is Doctrum, or Chasing Dreams by Deborah Rainey. It's a 2nd book in a trilogy about 3 sisters, and I'm going to read this book for my Dutch podcast, De Eindeloze Boekenkast, or The Endless Bookshelf, which I make with my friend. We're doing a buddy read every month, and the buddy read for June is this book. I had to buy this book for the podcast. It's a very new book and I'm really excited to read this one. So maybe I should not read this book first, because then I will have forgotten all about it when we're going to make the podcast, but I'm not sure whether I can wait that long. Another feel-good book I'm going to read is Blijf bij me, or Stay With Me. That translation is literal, so if you want to learn some Dutch and if you want to know how to say stay with me in Dutch, it's Blijf bij me. The next book on the list is The Flatshare. I can't remember the name of the author at the moment, but I've heard so many good stories about this book and I'm really looking forward to reading it. I was really excited that the Dutch translation is on Kobo Plus, because the English book is on my wish list for quite some time right now, but maybe I should read the book first before I'm going to order it, so I know whether this is really a book I will enjoy. Another book on my list is The Last Anniversary by Leah Moriarty. Every month I read a book by her, and I pulled this one out of my TBR jar and I'm really excited about this book because her books feel, well, usually her books are like 400 to 500 pages and they feel like only 200 or 300 pages, so that really helps with my challenge. Another feel-good series on my TBR is New Heights by Denise Hunter. Her books are also amazing and really helped me a couple of weeks ago, or actually already months ago, when I was in a sort of reading slump and behind on my challenge. And when I'm filming this video I am behind on the challenge, so these books will definitely help me in June. The order I tell them to you is not the order in which I'm going to read them, so I really have to mix the thrillers with the feel-good books, I think. Another book on my list, which is actually not a feel-good book but a novel, is The Long Highway Home by Elizabeth Musser. I'm really excited about this book because my best bookish friend told me that this is her favorite book by this author, and so far the book of all the books I read by this author, my favorite is The Wren's Nest, and according to my friend The Long Highway Home is even better than that one, so I can't wait. And another book on my list that's not a feel-good book and also not a thriller is 5 Feet Apart. I don't know the author, but I've heard so many good stories about this book. I haven't seen a film or anything like it, so I do know for a bit what it's about and I'm quite curious to read this book. Well, I thought I only had 2 types of books on the list, but there are actually... The next duology is not really a thriller, but it is by a thriller author, and it's, I believe it's fantasy mixed with some thriller-esque, I don't know, with some elements from thriller books, so it will be a very exciting read, I think. It's the Beyond the Circle duology by Ted Dekker. A couple of years ago I used to read everything that was written by Ted Dekker, but suddenly I discovered a lot of other authors and then I sort of forgot that Ted Dekker existed, so I forgot that this duology came out. I believe these books have been out for quite a couple of years now, but I've never read them. But I will in June. The last books that were originally published in English but I'm going to read in Dutch is the Intervention Trilogy by Terry Blackstock. These books are actually on my May TBR, but then I realized I wanted to do this whole thrillery thingy, so I wanted to read some thrillers for June, so I decided to not read them yet, but I'm going to read them in June. I got 4 more titles to share with you. The books I'm going to read in English. The first one is a non-fiction book, Garden City. Actually that book, De Ontdekking van Urk, is also a non-fiction book, and I've heard a lot of good things about this book and I'm really excited to read it. And another thriller I'm going to read is Echoes. This book is written by Laura Tisdall and I know this author, and I've read this book. It's such a great book. You should definitely check it out. It was self-published by Laura because she told me the story behind getting Echoes published, and I will tell you more about it in the weekly wrap-up video when I've read this book again, because it will be a reread for me, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to say that this is such a great book. But I'm really excited to read this book again, and yeah, I want to recommend this book to you. It's such a great book. Another trilogy I'm going to read is the Seer Trilogy by Rachel Decker. This is actually more of a dystopian type of book, but I think it has some elements from thriller books, so that's why I picked it for this month as well. That was originally on my April TBR, but there were quite a lot of other books I read, so I moved this one to June. And the last on my list is actually a series, The Noble Legacy by Susan May Warren. I have no idea how many books there are in this series, but I want to read at least one book, but maybe just all of them. And these were all the books I'm planning to read in June. I might add some books. Maybe you know a great thriller you would want to recommend to me. Like I said, I usually read thrillers by Christian authors. I do not really know why, but I've read some thrillers by non-Christian authors, but usually in the Christian thrillers there's this element of hope that people have. Sometimes it's a bit overdone, but not always. But I usually miss that in non-Christian books that are thrillers. I have that more with thriller books than with other books. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know in a comment down below what are you going to read in June. And if you want to follow me on my journey where I try to read 365 books, then consider subscribing to my channel. And as always, happy reading.